Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Korra, Asami and Jinora? Part 2. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. Korra, Tenzin, Naruto and a couple of the White Lotus members were in the dining hall. The sheer awkwardness of the situation was almost palpable. Nobody felt like making small conversation. After finishing the meal, Korra spoke up her doubts. So how long until you can teach me airbending? A week? A month? It could be much longer, I'm afraid. Tenzin responded. He didn't like seeing her so frustrated, but it had to be done. I just don't get it. Why are you making me wait? I have a responsibility to Republic City as one of its leaders. The situation there is very unstable right now. Maybe, but you also have a responsibility to teach me. Believe me, I'd be happy to find another airbending master, but you're the only one. We're stuck with each other. I wish there was another way. Naruto was hearing everything in silence. Then, realization struck him in the face. Wait, if you can't stay here, how about we bring Korra over to the air temple? I could watch her over while you attend your meetings at Republic City. He said, trying to support Korra. They treat her like she's some kind of animal of an extinct species or something. Nobody should live like that, Naruto said to himself. Hey, you're right. I can stay with the kids and Pima at the air temple and visit Republic City with Naruto, it's perfect. Korra perked up at the words of Naruto. Absolutely not. An old White Lotus member interrupted with near indignation at the proposal. It's far too dangerous for you to go around Republic City as it is. That wouldn't be a problem. I know Republic City fairly well so I could show her the not so dangerous areas around, and from what I've heard, Korra seems capable enough to take care of herself if any trouble came to her. Naruto retorted. HMPF, you are clearly too naive and immature for a task such as protecting her, boy. Avatar Aang tasked us with keeping the next avatar safe from any danger in order to fulfill its destiny. She will stay here and master the four elements as it is meant to be. Tenzin immediately bit his lower lip. Oh spirits, this is not good. Naruto was usually a respectful, educated and friendly young man most of the time. Sure, he could be a little arrogant in occasions, but that wasn't really a problem. Yet if there was one thing he didn't respond well to were insults. He could care less about who he was talking to, if someone bad-mouthed him, he would get right in their faces and get as nasty as needed. The White Lotus members were certainly not an exception. Naruto's facial expressions changed from calm to pissed off in a matter of seconds. Hey, who are you calling naive and immature, old man? He snapped. The White Lotus member couldn't believe what he just heard. How dare you? Believe me old man, I dare. I'm not taking any insults from a hypocrite like you. Watch your mouth boy, the White Lotus threatened, but Kaya had enough of this. Several spikes made of ice were suddenly up in the air aimed at the elderly. Kaya looked ready to be done with them. Next time you talk like that to my son, I will silence you, Kaya promised with narrowed eyes looking at them as if they were mere nothingness. Oh please, as if he is Act 2. Enough, Katara suddenly shouted. The White Lotus felt their blood go ice cold, even Naruto felt a chill from his grandmother's sudden tone. Silence took over the room. Korra now understood why Katara was known as one of the strongest waterbenders of her time, if not the strongest. That's quite enough. I'm sorry Korra, but I can't take you with me right now. When the time is right, I will introduce you to the ways of airbending. For the time being, you should stay here and try to improve your bending skills in the other elements. Tenzin said before things heated up more between his nephew and the White Lotus. He had enough stress for the day. Naruto gave him a disappointed look, he had been looking forward to spending time with Korra. Whatever. Korra said as she stood up and left the table to go to her room, leaving the dining hall again in complete silence. Anyways, I'm tired. I'll go get some shut-eye. Good night uncle, good night mother and good night grandmother. Naruto said. Good night Naruto. Tenzin, Kaya and Katara replied with a small nod, glad that the situation didn't escalate. Korra was currently in her room, not feeling happy at all. She had been waiting to learn airbending and leave the South Pole for so long, spending time with Naruto for longer than just a day, and when the opportunity finally presents itself, all she got was a spit in her face. She was even wondering if the whole thing was a fiasco, some sort of mean joke from the White Lotus, just for the sole purpose of messing with her. Heck, if it wasn't for Katara, whom she trusted her with her life and was the one who agreed she should start her airbending lessons, she would suspect of the White Lotus actually being behind all of this. Her thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the sound of a knock on her door. Can I come in? The voice behind the door said. Expecting to be one of the White Lotus members bringing her some dessert, she opened the door ready to grab whatever they had for her. She would shut her door as soon as possible anyways, not feeling like talking right now with anybody. What she was not expecting, however, was the guy behind the door. Naruto. What are you doing here? Korra asked. Just wanted to check on how you're doing. Naruto answered simply. Oh. Thanks, but I'm okay, really. Korra said in a not so convincing way. Yeah right. That face of yours tells me otherwise. Mind if I enter? Korra stepped aside, letting out a sigh. The young airbender entered a room, looking at the mess in front of him. Clothes were on the floor along with scrolls and other things like that. Naruto let out a small chuckle. Wow, real well cleaned. Reminds me of mine back home. He said, earning him a small laugh from Korra despite her obvious sadness. His attempt to make her feel a little better succeeded. So, why are you really here? The avatar questioned. I told you, I'm just checking up on you. Naruto answered. Really? You are not here to try to convince me that Tenzin is right and that I'm better of here? She asked again in disbelief. Every time she and the White Lotus had an argument, they would come to her room and tell her how everything they were doing was for her own safety. And she had about enough of that. Hey, I would never be against you Korra unless it's something really stupid Naruto stated, earning a small smile from Korra, appreciating that Naruto always was there. Thank you, and I appreciate that you backed me up. Korra said while laughing sheepishly, scratching the back of her head. Naruto then sat on Korra's bed, patting his left side as a way of telling her to join him, which she obliged. What's on your mind? Naruto started. The young avatar sighed. It's just not fair. I've been waiting my whole life for this, and now I'm stuck again. Korra said as she stared at Naruto's blue eyes. He listened to every word she said while thinking what could cheer her up. He hated seeing her so down like that. Hey Naruto, can I ask you something? The Water Tribe girl asked, stopping Naruto's thoughts for the time being. Sure, what's up? Why did you side with me back there? Korra asked. When Naruto's right eyebrow went up, she decided to elaborate. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad you did, but I didn't really expect it. You know, you being Tenzin's nephew and all. Hearing her explanation, the young man grinned at her. Well, I do have a couple of reasons. 3 to be exact. Number 1, keeping somebody locked up like that is not only cruel, but also wrong. Even if you are the avatar, you are also a person. Number 2, these White Lotus members may not have realized this, but they're actually making it harder for you to be the avatar by keeping you confined like this. How are you supposed to help maintain balance in the world if you have no idea how the world is? By trying to protect you so much they ended up hindering you, so to speak. That's why I called that White Lotus old fart a hypocrite. And because he called me an immature and naive boy. Korra pondered over what she just heard. She had never seen things that way. She wanted to explore and get out of the South Pole, that was for sure, but what Naruto just said to her made her realize how right he actually was. She specially recalled one thing he stated. How am I supposed to help maintain balance in the world if I have no idea how the world is? It really was an eye-opener. Not to mention, the face Master Naruto had when Naruto called him an old hypocrite was enough for her to feel genuine joy. Master Naruto had always been strict with her regarding her training and keeping her secluded from anybody else, including her own family. Wow, I never really thought about it like that. What about reason number 3? Naruto let out a small chuckle. Well, number 3 would be that I would love for you to be in the air temple, it gets kinda boring with an old man like Tenzin. I like the idea of having you in the air temple. The avatar blushed at the compliment. After a few giggles, she turned around to meet his eyes. Thanks Naruto, you're a good friend. Ouch, I come here to make you feel better and all I get is a you're a good friend. Naruto asked in a mocking way, pretending to be hurt. Noticing that he was teasing her, she smirked. Yup. That's all you're getting from me. Damn. I was expecting you to at least say something like wow Naruto, you are the most awesome guy I have ever seen or something. Aren't you being just a tad bit BP? BP? Me? Not at all. I'm just pointing out a fact. Naruto responded before both of them started laughing at their own joke. The young Water Tribe girl was surprised how could Naruto always cheer her up. Before he entered her room she was sad and in no mood to talk with anybody, but after a few minutes with him, she started to feel better about the whole thing. She was still upset about not being able to start her airbending training and all, but at least she now had someone to talk about it. You know, I'm sure I can visit more often, I'm not that busy right now. Naruto asked. Really? I'd love that. But, I'm not sure the sentries would like the idea of you disturbing my avatar training and all. Especially after your little scene with Master Naruto back there. Korra responded with a frown on her face. She knew that those old geezers would do anything in their power to prevent Naruto from visiting her. They wouldn't allow her own family to come see her, so why would they let him? Don't worry. If anyone has a problem with me coming here, I'll have them introduced to Sozu, see if they change their minds. The young airbender responded with a grin. Sozu? Who's that? Korra asked with a raised eyebrow. Sozu is my Raven Eagle companion. You know, that awesome big bird I came here with. Why didn't you tell me about him sooner? Now that I think of it, where did you find a raven eagle so big? I have never seen one like that. Well, I wanted to surprise you, and sorry, I'll tell you next time. Oh, come on. Why next time? Korra pouted in a childish way, earning her a laugh from her friend. So I can have an excuse to tell Tenzin to go visit you, of course. Korra pouted again. That Sozu pet seems so cool, she was wondering if Naruto would let her meet his raven eagle. Naruto seemed to be very fond of him. She shrugged and deduced it was the same kind of human mascot type of relationship she had with Naga, her polar bear dog. Naruto yawned. Well, I'm going to sleep. See you in the morning? He asked. The young avatar smiled. Sure, good night. Good night, Korra. Naruto said as he started to leave her room. When he opened the door, however, he was stopped by the voice of the girl behind him. Naruto? Yeah? Thanks for the talk. I actually feel a little better now, she said truthfully. After having him come to her room to check up on her when he didn't have to, she thought she should at least thank him for his kindness. Don't mention it. It's the least I could do. Naruto replied with a wink as he closed the door, leaving a young avatar with a slight pink blush on her cheeks, thanking the spirits Naruto wasn't there to see her flustered like that. As she closed her eyes, Korra remembered his blue eyes below her when they were in the snow, his lips, his nose, cheeks, everything. Naruto. Naruto stood outside patting his eagle, which made a purring sound as he did so. Naruto chuckled as he threw rocks with his airbending a long distance away from where he was standing. Naruto pointed to another rock, which began to float despite the fact that Naruto had not used airbending to make it float. Naruto had always questioned why he was able to do certain things, such as walking on water, trees, houses, and everything else. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the strange creature inside me, Naruto thought, instinctively touching his stomach with his hand. His little friend seemed to understand his situation, placing his beak on Naruto's shoulder, as if trying to confront him. They might think of me differently, he thought, instinctively touching his stomach with his hand. Naruto, the blonde turned to see his mother approaching him. His friend didn't try to stop her, as if he sensed she wasn't a threat to Naruto in any way. He's quite beautiful, Kaya said, touching his beak slightly. In response, the eagle raised his crest in pride, giving Naruto the look that said, see, someone appreciates me. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders as Kaya sat close to her son and looked at him. Can you tell me what you're doing here? Kaya found herself asking because she had seen him go into Korra's room and it appeared that nothing had happened between the two of them previously. Grabbing a small rock and throwing it from one hand to another before tossing it into the sea, Naruto explained. Nothing, just looking at the moon and a little angry, he added. What's the matter with you, my son? While rubbing his hair, Kaya recalled how much Naruto enjoyed it when she rubbed his hair when he was a child. Korra is the avatar, she shouldn't be allowed to remain in this place. She's supposed to be a symbol of hope for everyone, similar to how Grandpa Aang was for everyone. How can Korra be that when no one knows her, if she doesn't know anyone outside of this place? Naruto concluded, pointing to Korra's residence. Kaya sighed, knowing how much his son thought of Korra and her family. When Kaya said I know, don't worry about it, Naruto smiled and said, perhaps I can talk with mother, she might know what to do. You're the best, Naruto exclaimed as he kissed her on the cheek. Kaya burst out laughing at his antics. Before calming down, a smirk grew in her face. Naruto didn't have a good feeling from that smirk. How's Asami doing? Have you informed her that I would like to meet my future daughter-in-law? Kaya said in amusement and Naruto blushed and turned his head away from Kaya's laughter. I'm sure she'll be able to come here the next time I come here, Naruto replied, his gaze remaining fixed on her. Because she was aware of Naruto's reaction, Kaya teased him, I hope she's as good as you say for my baby boy. Mom, Naruto pouted, annoyed that his mother had continued to treat him as if he were still in diapers after all these years. In response, Naruto pointed to his body as if to say I'm not a baby boy anymore, I've grown, while his eagle companion shook his head as if to say no. I understand, but no matter how much you grow, you will always be my baby boy, and no matter what happens, you will always be welcome here, Kaya said, rubbing his hair once more in a happy manner. Naruto smiled, realizing that he was feeling much better now and that he now understood why Uncle Tenzin always said that mothers are always right. The silence took over. Naruto's gaze was drawn to the stars, recalling something he had never had the courage to ask her, despite the passage of time. Mother, can I ask you a question? Naruto inquired, his tone shifting from one of delight to one of sadness. Something Kaya noticed right away, even though her son was still staring up at the night sky above them. Of course, my son, you are always welcome to speak with me about anything, Kaya responded immediately and without hesitating. Naruto lowered his gaze and took a deep breath before looking up at the stars as if preparing for something. Who was my father? Eventually, Naruto inquired, his eyes not looking at his mother, not wanting to look, and immediately regretted his decision. Perhaps it's too hard for her to talk about it, he reasoned. I uttered a small "oh," rubbing her arm with her hand, and her gaze drifted to a small necklace around her neck. Upon opening it, she saw a photograph of her and Kanji taken 3 weeks before everything came to an end. Kanji had brown hair and green eyes, and Naruto had blonde hair and green eyes, so she knew she couldn't claim that he was his father. And still, she knew she couldn't lie to him, she didn't want him to believe that someone else was his father, despite not knowing who could have been his father. When she closed the necklace, she could feel her eyes welling up. She closed her eyes and forced herself not to cry, wondering if he would recognize her as his mother after knowing the truth. She questioned herself. When she opened her eyes, she could feel his arms around her, hugging her. Kaya returned the hug. "Nah, my son, I have something I need to show you, Kaya, you there," they both heard a voice say, and turning around, they saw Katara walking towards them. "Brahma," Naruto greeted her first. Katara smiled at him before noticing Kaya's red eyes. She was about to ask what was wrong when she noticed her hands clutching her medallion. "Kaya, I need to talk to you privately about something," Katara continued. Naruto gave his grandmother a friendly smile before turning to face her. "Don't worry, mother, we can talk later, and know that whatever you say, I will always love you," Naruto stated with a smile, and Kaya reciprocated with a bright smile before kissing his cheek and referring to him as my baby boy once more. Naruto leaned in and kissed Katara on the cheek before walking away. When Naruto was almost to his house, he had the distinct impression that someone was watching him. He looked around and saw no one, he immediately looked up at the moon and saw nothing. Strange. I swear I could have sensed the presence of someone there. The following day the airbending family was up and ready to go. Tenzin and Pima were gathering their children, who were sad to leave the place. Both Ikki and Jinora were already sitting on Yugi with their mother, waiting for Tenzin to stop Milo from trying to sit on Sozu's saddle. On the other hand, Naruto was looking for Korra to say goodbye to her and remind her that he would visit her when he had the time. Unfortunately, he couldn't find her anywhere. Seeing that he was unable to reach her, he walked towards Grandma, who was waving her son's family goodbye, a sad expression on her face and a few tears running down her eyes. "Grandma?" Naruto slowly said. Katara sniffled a bit before turning her head. "Yes, dear?" she asked. "I was wondering if you could tell Korra I said goodbye to her. I can't find her and I have to go now. Just let her know I promise to visit her whenever I can," he said before looking down. Aang's wife sighed before looking at Naruto, a sad smile placed on her mouth. "Sure, I'll let her know. That girl needs more people like you in her life. I don't think this is what my husband wanted for her." "I agree. Living in the same place secluded from the world outside because of a destiny she didn't choose is not living at all," Naruto said as he walked away from her. "Naruto," the blonde turned to see his mother walking towards him. Naruto smiled before approaching to her and hugging her. Kaya smiled in return, hugging him back. Kaya's eyes welled at how much her son had grown. She still remembered the little baby crawling around, his first word. "Mother, you alright?" Naruto suddenly asked, concerned, looking at her eyes. Kaya pulled away slightly before wiping away her tears with her sleeve. "I'm fine, Naruto, she struggled before looking at her son again, sometimes wondering if telling him the truth would be the right thing to do. Will he stop looking at me as his mother? Will he hate me?" She quickly threw those thoughts away. "You have grown, my son, I just remembered when I first saw you, you were so little and tiny," she spoke, making Naruto chuckle, rubbing his hair. "Yeah, I remember when I first saw Ikki, wondering if I have really been that small," Naruto said, causing both Kaya and Katara to laugh. Naruto looked at his eagle before turning to look at his mother. "I have to go, I will visit as soon as possible," the blonde promised, kissing his mother's cheek and his grandmother's. He then put on his gloves and placed his hood up. Sozu approached him and kneeled so he could ride him, not feeling very comfortable with all the snow in the place. "Alright, Sozu, let's go," the young man said to his raven eagle, who started flying after a single jump. It wasn't long before the two of them were a small dot in the sky. Katara sighed. "He is a lot like you, Aang," she whispered. "He is, sometimes, I wonder where Naruto came from." Despite Yumi looking for her name, he never found information about a redhead woman, Kaya said, knowing that Yumi had literally looked in every nation, even Lord Zuko had looked over it. Still, there was never any information about her. Kaya visited the woman's grave every month, making sure to bring flowers, saying that her son was safe and happy. Their temple. Naruto, after having breakfast and doing his exhausting morning workout, took a shower and searched for Pima. His exercise routine consisted of push-ups, sit-ups, drink plenty of juice, speed training using weights, airbending exercises, and continuous spars with imaginary opponents, performing moves he created in his unique Yodobi-named fighting style, among other activities. This particular workout allowed him to harden his body as well as his airbending. Instead of relying on defense, he used his airbending in a lot more offensive way, incorporating kicks and punches of all kinds. "Hey, Aunt Pima." Naruto greeted her as he made his way to the gardens. "Yes, sweetie. I'm going to Republic City for a while. I have to buy more food for Sozu." Pima looked at him with curiosity. "Didn't you buy him enough food for a month the last time you went?" "Yeah, but apparently, somebody left Sozu's bag of food open. Any ideas who might have been?" he asked with humor. It was more than obvious who was the author of the crime. His aunt giggled. "Milo just wants to fly with him for once. The other day I saw him wearing feathers all over his body. He said he wanted to fool Sozu by making him believe he was a baby raven eagle." The airbender sighed. "That boy is gonna get himself eaten one of these days. Anyways, I'm taking off. See you later, auntie. Fly safe." Republic City. Naruto was walking near the shopping district he normally went for Sozu's food. He was wearing his typical outfit, a pair of black boots with black pants, along with his favorite gray jacket that had its sleeves torn, revealing his defined arms at sight, much to the pleasure of every girl that saw him. He was also wearing bandages on his wrists. Overall, he looked like a firebender, except for the color of his hair, eyes, and skin. As he made his way to the shop, he noticed a Satomobile parking near a store that sold phonographs and things like that. 3 men walked out of the vehicle, and Naruto recognized them instantly. Triple Threat's members. The young man growled. Ever since the Triad's gangs became a problem in Republic City, dealing with them was one of the things he wanted the most. Of course, his training demanded him to stay put on the island, and Tenzin absolutely disapproved of the idea of Naruto involving himself with them. He knew the boy for 18 years now and was certain that he would jump at the chance of confronting them, which could easily involve the complete and utter destruction of an entire block if Naruto was angry. That was another thing that Tenzin, to this very day, couldn't understand. Naruto was a very talented airbending master in his own way. His mentality as an airbender was almost the exact opposite of what it should be. It was a mix between a firebender and an earthbender, trying to make his way right into the obstacle, rather than surrounding it. Back to the present, Naruto made a decision. He had tried hard to ignore them and let the police officers take care of the problem, but they were not here. Before he could draw the attention of the gang members threatening the shopkeeper, a voice was heard from the other side of the street. "Or else what, hoodlum?" On the other side of the street, a young girl wearing blue traditional water tribe clothes was standing near them, hands on her hips and smirking confidently at the triple threats. "Oh, Korra," Naruto thought while smiling. The 3 stooges stared at her in confusion before laughing at her annoyingly loud. When the laughter died down, the guy that looked like the leader of the other 2 spoke up. "Look, girlie, since you're obviously fresh off the boat, let me explain to you a couple of things. You're in triple threat triad territory and we're about to put you in the hospital," he said condescendingly. Korra had an amused expression on her face. "You're the only ones who will need a hospital. And for your sake, I hope there's one nearby," she replied, crackling her knuckles. The leader's face quickly changed. "Who the hell you think you are?" He was not going to let that little girl disrespect him like that. "Why don't you find out?" That was it. The gang leader brought some water hidden out of his coat and threw it at her with the use of his waterbending. Korra immediately stopped the attack once it was at arm's length. Before her enemy could react, Korra threw the water back at him, splashing his face and turning the water into ice. The man lost his balance and started tripping over, just to receive a kick in the head by the same girl. The kick sent him falling headfirst into their own Satomobile, smashing his head right into the front part of the vehicle. The blow was so hard the ice that was still covering his head was shattered, leaving him knocked out. The other 2 thugs were astonished by how easily that girl defeated their boss. But before they could react, another figure took the spot. In a gray and black flash, the earthbender of the squad received a punch to his guts, followed by a spinning kick to the jaw that threw him to the ground. When he tried to get up, a fast punch to his forehead left him out cold. Korra was too busy handling the firebender, a skinny and pale-looking guy who was craping his pants at the moment, to notice the stranger that fought the other guy. After neutralizing him with little to no effort and smashing several stores in the process, she turned her back around to face the last guy of the gang. To her surprise, the big guy was lying unconscious on the ground. A boy was standing near him, and she deduced he was the one who took down the earthbender. "Hey, thanks for the help with that. Not that I needed it, but still," Korra said. "And you said I was the beepy one, Korra," the guy said, still not turning his back around. The avatar gasped. "Naruto. What are you doing here?" Naruto smirked. "I think I could ask you the same thing. Not that I'm not glad to see you or anything, but aren't you supposed to be at the South Pole?" Before she could reply, a metal bending squad came to the scene. "Cool, metal benders," the native girl from the southern water tribe said. It was her first time in the big city and she had seen so much. She was somewhat disappointed with the place, however. Republic City was a lot less impressive than what she had originally expected. I have a responsibility to Republic City as one of its leaders. The situation there is very unstable right now. Tenzin's words echoed inside her head. I guess this is what Tenzin was talking about. Don't worry, officers, we caught the bad guys for you. Getting here a little earlier would have been nice, Naruto muttered. Still, we stopped the thugs blackmailing the shop's owner. That's the most important thing right now. Korra nodded in agreement. Arrest them. The metal bending leader ordered to his squad. Without much delay, 3 metal benders shot their cables and captured the gang members. 2 of them were way too injured to put up a fight and the other one was still knocked out. When the criminals were dealt with, the same officer pointed at Naruto and Korra. Arrest them too. What? Both of them shouted. But why? We just stopped the bad guys for you. They were smashing up an old man's shop. Korra shouted in her defense. From the looks of it, you smashed a lot more than that. The officer said while pointing at the street. A few other stores were smashed apart, product of Korra's less than subtle way of dealing with the gang members. Plus, it's illegal to apply justice with your own hands. Maybe so, but that wouldn't have happened if you guys actually were here to apply justice like you are supposed to do, Naruto argued back. You can explain yourself all you like, back at the headquarters, he responded while gesturing to one of his subordinates. Later. Let's see. Multiple counts of destruction of city property, evading arrest, and acts of violence towards the city's law enforcers. You two are in deep trouble. The woman said to Naruto and Korra, who were brought to the interrogation room after being apprehended. She had gray hair and green eyes and was wearing the standard metal bending armor. Naruto would recognize her face from a mile away. Korra, on the other hand, wasn't as calm as her companion. But some thugs were threatening a helpless shopkeeper and we had to. Pan it. What you should have done was to call the police force and stay out of the way, not starting a ground war in the middle of my city. The frowny woman said, interrupting Korra from explaining themselves. I know, but I just couldn't sit there and do nothing. See, I'm the Avatar. Korra explained, looking sheepishly at the end, praying to the spirits the Avatar card worked. Oh, how wrong she was. Oh, I'm well aware of who you are. And your little Avatar title might impress some people, but not me, she said condescendingly. The woman now turned to see Naruto, who was sitting right next to Korra. What's your excuse, brat? How about you treat me a little nicer, for starters? I don't like you insulting me over nothing, Granny Lin. Naruto responded. That woman rubbed him the wrong way. If she expected him to respect her after openly calling him a brat, she was in for a big surprise. Korra almost laughed and wanted to ask how he knew her. The lady's facial expression turned into a murderous one. What did you just call me, kid? I am Chief Beifong, and you will address me as such, Naruto. The nerve of Naruto sometimes annoyed her, he sometimes knew how to act, but sometimes he knew how to push the right buttons, besides, she wasn't even that old. Wait a minute. Korra realized. Beifong. Lin Beifong. You're Toph's daughter. She exclaimed. Lin shrugged. What of it? But if you're Toph's daughter, then why are you treating us like criminals? Avatar Aang and your mother were friends. They saved the world together. That's ancient history, and it's got diddly squat with the mess you two have gotten yourself into. None of you can just walk in here and go, vigilante, like you own the place. Naruto smirked. This was going to be fun. In that case, Granny, may I know why your so-called law enforcers are never around whenever a crime is being committed? Every time I walk through the streets of Republic City, the triads are always taking advantage of the less fortunate. Maybe this wouldn't have happened if you actually had this city under control. Are you trying to tell me how to do my job? Lin asked with a dangerous tone. The young man just shrugged. Not at all, Granny. I'm just pointing out how much you suck at it. Now I understand why Aunt Cyan said Republic City sucks. Once again, totally worth it. Who's Cyan? Korra asked, looking at them, but neither Naruto nor Lin was paying her any attention. Before Lin could metal bend the crap out of Naruto, a small panel in the wall slid open, revealing the face of a police officer. Chief Beifong, I am sorry to interrupt your interrogation, but Councilman Tenzin has arrived and wishes to have a word with you. Lin was fighting with herself. She knew she had to deal with Tenzin, but the urge to smack the loud-mouthed brat to death was very hard to control. In the end, she just sighed and indicated to her subordinate to let the councilman in. The police officer nodded and opened the door, revealing a certain airbender that looked stressed out of his mind. Sorry Tenzin. We got a little sidetracked on our way to see you. Korra said sheepishly. Tenzin said nothing as he glared at them. Letting out a sigh, he turned to face Lin with the most charming smile he could do. Lin, you're looking radiant as usual. He started to say. Hearing what his uncle just said, Naruto had no other option but to bite his lower lip hard enough to feel the blood in order to suppress his laughter. Cut the garbage, Tenzin. Why are the Avatar and her boyfriend here in Republic City? I thought you were supposed to be moving down to the South Pole to train her. Upon hearing the word boyfriend, both Naruto and Korra reacted. Naruto simply smiled, amused by the whole thing, while Korra blushed significantly. The thought of having Naruto as a boyfriend sure sounded tempting, but she quickly dismissed the idea. Korra didn't know if the blonde looked at her that way. With his looks, he probably had every girl in Republic City drooling and throwing themselves at him. The voice of Tenzin brought her back to the real world. My relocation has been delayed. The Avatar, on the other hand, will be heading back to the South Pole immediately, where she will stay put. Tenzin said. But. If you would be so kind as to drop the charges against Korra and my nephew, I will take full responsibility for today's regrettable events and cover all the damages. Tell your brat nephew that next time, I won't be so generous, she said with a frown. I thought I said you should stop calling me brat, Naruto started until Tenzin cut him off. I will tell him that this won't happen again. After a few seconds, Lin sighed and unlocked both of the teen's handcuffs. Just get them out of my city. She really didn't have time for this. Her current investigations demanded all of her attention, and while the idea of smacking the little punk tempted her, she decided to wait for him to do another of these stunts in order to claim vengeance. Maybe he got away with it once, but by the spirits, he wouldn't get away with it twice. Tenzin visibly relaxed as he spoke to Lin. Always a pleasure, Lin. Korra, Naruto, let's go, he said as he gestured to the Avatar and his nephew. As Korra was leaving, Chief Beifong gave her an I'm watching you glare along with a hand gesture, which Korra didn't hesitate to return. When it came to Naruto, he said something Uncle Sokka always loved to say. Water tribe, Naruto said, making a gesture with his hands as they closed the door. And so, the three of them exited the room, leaving a very angry and frustrated chief of police behind. Outside the interrogation room. Tenzin, please don't send me back home. Korra pleaded with the aged airbender. You blatantly disobeyed my wishes and the orders of the White Lotus, Tenzin responded. But Katara agreed with me that I should come. She said my destiny is in Republic City. She's right, you know. Before I returned to the Air Temple during our little visit, I talked with her. When I asked her about how she felt about Korra's current situation, she said, and I'm quoting right now. I don't think this is what my husband wanted for her. Therefore, she agreed that Korra should leave the South Pole. You can ask her if you want. AHA. We got you mama's boy. The face of Tenzin turned red instantly. Don't bring my mother into this. He shouted. Calm down, uncle. Calm? I'm completely calm. Tenzin yelled out. Naruto was grinning at his uncle's face, while Korra was wondering where the calm Tenzin went. Korra ignored Tenzin's outburst. Look, I can't wait any longer to finish my training. Being cooped up and hiding away from the world isn't helping me become a better Avatar. I saw a lot of the city today, and it's totally out of whack. I understand now why Republic City needs you, but it needs me too. Before Tenzin could argue back, a voice was heard on the other side of the room. Is this you polar bear dog, miss? Air Temple docks. Naruto watched as a ship waited for Korra on the docks. He really hated seeing her go back to her so-called home, which was filled with moody White Lotus old geezers that kept her in captivity. Before she left, Naruto decided to say some parting words, if only just to make her feel a little better, very much like the other night at the South Pole. Approaching the girl, Naruto spoke up. Hey there. Korra looked up and saw the airbender in front of her with a sad smile. Hey Naruto. Listen, just because you're going back doesn't mean you won't see me around. I promised I would visit you from time to time, and I intend to keep my word. The young Avatar looked at him with surprise. You really mean it? She asked. Tenzin's nephew grinned at her. Yeah, I really do. What kind of friend would I be if I let you all alone in that snowy hell? Korra smiled at Naruto, she felt her heart beating in her throat, beating faster for him. He didn't saw her just as the Avatar, but as Korra, the hot-headed girl from the Southern Water Tribe. Not only that, but he also promised to visit her when he had the time, and now she really believed him. Overwhelmed by her emotions, Korra walked right into Naruto and gave him a bone-crushing hug. Naruto was a little surprised by her actions, but quickly returned the embrace. Thank you, she whispered into his ear. No problem, Naruto responded. They kept hugging each other for a minute before Korra realized she was hugging Naruto a little too hard. She couldn't help but notice that Naruto's torso was very hard, yet also soft. She quickly ended the hug and stared at her friend. Sorry about that, Korra said while rubbing the back of her head, a small blush coming out of her cheeks. Naruto, in return, gave her his signature smirk along with his infamous wink, the ones that made him so popular around Republic City's gossipy girls. The Avatar could only feel her cheeks slowly heating up upon seeing his gesture. Korra looked at his blue eyes, she found herself mesmerized by them, her eyes found his lips, they looked so she felt funny, the blonde felt her hot breath on his face, her eyes half closed as her face leaned closer to his. Korra, Jinora suddenly shouted, making her break from her thoughts about Naruto. Goddamn Jinora, again. Suddenly, the three children of Tenzin and Pima landed right in front of them using their gliders. Korra. They all shouted in excitement. Are you going to move to the air temple? Ikki asked with excitement. No. I'm sorry, Ikki, but I have to go home now. Korra said with sadness as she knelt down and placed her hands on both Ikki and Jinora's shoulders. The three airbenders aiiii'd in unison. Naruto approached the airbending trio. Hey guys, glad to see you too. It's nice to see you care for your beloved old cousin for a change, he said, pretending to be hurt. Naruto. The three kids shouted. Milo ruined towards him and clenched to his leg, not letting it go. How's it going, Squirt? Naruto asked his cousin. Hey, I'm not a squirt, I'm a full-grown man. Milo shouted in anger. Naruto just shrugged. Sure thing, Squirt. Are you gonna let me ride Sozu now? Maybe I would've let you if you hadn't let his food bag open. Now I have to buy a new one. Aw stinky. Milo pouted. Now it was time for Jinora to step in. Naruto, why were you and Korra hugging? Before either of them could answer, Ikki opened her question cannon mouth. Are you dating Korra? Are you her boyfriend? Did you two kiss? Are you getting married? The young airbender saw this coming a mile away. The same thing could not be said about Korra if the steam coming out of her tomato red face was anything to go by. Before any explanation could be said, Tenzin spoke up. Wait, he said, gaining the attention of everyone. I have done my best to guide Republic City towards my father's dream for it. But you are right. It has fallen out of balance since he has passed. I thought I should put off your training in order to uphold his legacy, but you are his legacy. You may stay and train airbending here with me, for Republic City needs its avatar once again. He finished while placing a hand on Korra's shoulder, which made her gasp. Unable to resist the urge, Korra shouted. Yes. Thank you, you're the best. She then proceeded to hug Milo, Jinora and Ikki, who were also cheering out of joy. What about me? Don't I get a second hug? Naruto asked. Korra ignored his pleading as she continued to hug the kids. Naruto then turned to face his uncle and gave him a look that clearly said thanks, softy. Which went with a crap-eating grin. Tenzin sends him a glare back. Shut your mouth, Naruto. As they were making their way back to the air temple, Naruto was thinking about everything that had happened since the day of their visit to the South Pole. He had no idea what the future would bring him, but one thing was certain. There was this sensation he couldn't get out of his head, and he didn't mind. I have a feeling that things are about to get a lot more fun. He thought with a smile. Indeed, let's see how that spirit will do. Shit. You again. Naruto looked at the giant's strange red eyes, his little face filled with confusion. Despite the feeling of weight around him, the blonde wondered what the spirit meant by being the jailer. The blonde had personally read, and even Uncle Tenzin had talked to him about spirits from the spirit world, and just like people of this world, there were bad spirits like Ko, the face stealer, Yayan, the silent voice and many others. Naruto had heard from Uncle that the avatar had the avatar spirit, a spirit that reincarnates every time the previous holder dies. Now, the blonde wondered if this red spirit was similar. Uncle Tenzin never said anything of me having one. And neither did Mom. Who are you? Naruto asked, tilting his head at the side. He expected to see more, but all he could see was the dark red eyes, but not the actual body behind them. I'm QB. What do you want? QB asked, slightly confused because of the damn seal holding him. He could hardly feel if nothing at all outside. He had no idea what was happening outside. One thing he knew was that everything felt different, even the brat felt different. His chakra was activated, but there was something new. Still, he just couldn't quite put the finger on. QB never heard of you, are you a spirit? Naruto simply stated, feeling the weight around him slowly easing. The blonde didn't know if this spirit wasn't trying to dominate him or if he was getting used to it. QB narrowed his eyes. He had expected the brat to look different. He didn't look like someone who people hated. He didn't see the loneliness behind his eyes that QB had expected, not mentioning he still remembered the strange bald man years ago. The man had felt as if he was some sort of Jinchuriki, but not storing a biju inside. Never heard of me, QB almost growled at the end, showing his teeth, trying to intimidate him, but Naruto just looked amazed by his size. Why are you here, though? Are you like the avatar? Naruto asked, not knowing how else to think of him. This got QB even more confused. Avatar, what is that? Despite hating to ask, he wanted to know what was going outside and where he even was. Therefore QB ignored his pride and bluntly asked. What do you mean with avatar? Where are you? What kind of place do you live? Naruto just kept silent at the spirit or creature. He wondered whenever to tell him, but he had his own questions that needed answers. I will answer them, but I first need to know how are you here? Where are we, and are you a spirit? Naruto asked. QB growled in annoyance as he spread his killing intent. Naruto suddenly felt extremely weak, his knees hardly holding him, standing, shaking, feeling as if his bones were cracking from the sheer weight. QB stopped his kai, deciding just to answer them. I was sealed inside you brat when you were a baby brat, we are in your mindscape, and I'm no spirit, but a Biju, QB answered, growling more. Naruto listened to him, his breathing heavy, but now he had even more questions than before. Sealed inside me? What do you mean, are you like Korra with the Ava? Answer my questions first, QB interrupted, spreading his kai. Naruto stopped talking before answering to QB. By the end, the giant red eyes looked strange to Naruto. I see. His thoughts were interrupted by the little brat. We will talk later, QB said. Naruto suddenly felt as if an invisible force was pushing him away, even the calm water started rising and causing waves. Putting his arms in front of his face, everything went white. Air Temple in the morning now. As the sun rose up over the Air Temple, Naruto fought the everyday struggle. The brawl he was cursed to engage in for the rest of his life. His greatest opponent, a threat bigger than anything someone had ever faced. Getting out of bed. As Naruto relentlessly tried to stand up, he could feel it. He was winning. When his feet touched the wooden floor, he used all of his strength to move. If he failed to get up, he knew he would be doomed, and the dark forces of laziness would stand tall at the very end. It was now or never. Using all of his might, he jumped out of bed and took a minute to regain his balance. It took a while, but it was done. He looked back and glanced at the corpse that was his bed, sheets completely out of place. A reminder of the grand battle he fought every day. Once more, I stand victorious against you. We will face again tomorrow, but be certain that I shall be your downfall like every time we have fought, the fearsome warrior thought dramatically as he exited his room. It was finally over. Walking towards the dining room, Naruto was thinking about what he would do this morning. It had been a while since he continued his workout sessions, so he decided that he should make up for it by extending them temporarily with longer and more exhausting exercises. Occasionally, Naruto would pack a few things and go to a secluded area in the island forest where he could try out new techniques in peace, not afraid of having Tenzin on his back, complaining about how misdirected his airbending was. Seriously, couldn't he give him a break once in a while? As different as his airbending was from the traditional ways, it was still airbending. Besides, if he had adjusted to the traditional ways, Naruto was certain he wouldn't be as good as he was right now. Talking about Naruto's airbending, he never showed his true abilities to Tenzin. Why would he? As much as he cared for his uncle and respected him in most of his decisions, Naruto had a goal. And his goal was to show his mom how much of an amazing airbender he had become. As he pondered about his mother, he couldn't help but think back on what his mother wanted to say to him before Grandma interrupted them. It doesn't matter, my family loves me, and that's what matters, he thought before remembering about the talk with the spirit inside him. Despite how many times QB denied he was a spirit, the blonde still called him that. Since the first time they meet, Naruto had never seen him, since he would probably talk every once in a while, but mostly when he was angry at something. His mind was clouded, mostly what happened 7 years ago, for Asami's birthday. Naruto felt a shiver down his spine, despite remembering almost nothing. One thing he remembered clearly was Asami's bloody face and a voice telling him that he was a monster. Naruto didn't remember much after that, and Uncle Tenzin didn't elaborate on what happened, and neither did Asami, much to his surprise. The blonde couldn't help but smile. Tomorrow Asami would return to the city, he could spend time with her again. The bed had been very cold. Naruto escaped his thoughts. Now it was time for breakfast, and when it was time for breakfast, it was time for breakfast and nothing more. When he reached the dining table, he heard Korra and Tenzin discussing something. So I have to go to a press conference today? Korra asked her teacher. Yes. The council and I believe that you should introduce yourself to the city. They must know you are here with them now. But don't worry, it shouldn't take too long, Tenzin replied. Korra sighed. Great. A country girl is giving a speech in the big city. I wonder how's that gonna turn out. She already had one heck of a first day in Republic City yesterday, and she would much rather try to outrun the metal benders again than to go and face all of those journalists and reporters asking questions. Actions were her thing, not words. Morning, everyone, Naruto said while taking a seat next to the avatar. Morning, Korra started to say before she realized something. Naruto was sitting next to her. Wearing a white tank top. And in boxers. Now, let's beepize the situation here. Going around wearing boxers was a normal thing for Naruto. He stopped caring for whatever Tenzin had to say about his clothes a long time ago. He was 18 and he had the right to wear whatever he liked, as long as it wasn't something too ridiculous or over the top. His uncle may not be very fond of his clothing choices, but he would put up with it, or at least try to. However, the one who was certainly not used to seeing guys in their underwear was Korra. The poor girl was so shocked to see a guy wearing so little clothing she couldn't even talk. She just sat there in silence, staring at him with her mouth slightly open. Why am I seeing this? Apparently, Naruto wasn't aware of the sudden silence and casually started eating his usual breakfast. He wondered why his uncle had yet to greet him back, but hey, it was the morning and nobody was very attentive when they just got out of bed. So he just shrugged it off and reached for the jug of milk. Tenzin glared at his nephew and coughed forcibly in order to catch his attention. The boy was not aware that his current attire was distracting Korra. You alright, uncle? Naruto asked, concerned. His only answer was another cough from Tenzin. It was possible that he wasn't seeing things very well due to being fresh out of bed, but Naruto could have sworn he saw Tenzin's right eye twitching. What's his deal? He thought. And then there was Korra, who still looked flustered for some reason. And what's her deal? Do I have something on my face? Then he realized what was going on. Oh right, we have a guest now. Sorry, haha. Naruto awkwardly excused himself before leaving the room. Tenzin sighed. Anyways, we should leave for Republic City in about 2 hours. When the conference starts, you have to remain calm and answer every question like the councilman explained. But at this point, Korra simply could not focus on whatever Tenzin had to say. The only thing that was wandering in her mind was the image of Naruto in boxers and tank top sitting near her. It was unexpected and she didn't quite know what to make of it. I just hope that I get to see him more like that every once in a while, she thought carelessly. Wait a second. What did I just think? Bad Korra. She mentally shouted at herself as a small blush of embarrassment appeared on her face. After a while, she calmed down and kept telling herself that she was not some kind of pervert just because she liked a guy's body, face, and blue eyes like ocean, his abs, damn it, Naruto. She was no pervert. It was a stupid thing to believe, right? Right? Korra, are you listening? Tenzin's voice shot her back to the real world. Me? Yeah, I got it. Don't worry, she said in a very unconvincing manner. I'm screwed. She is screwed, the airbender thought in unison. Republic City press conference. Okay, I take it back. I'm not just screwed, I'm completely, 100%, totally and utterly screwed, was the thought of the teenage avatar as she walked towards her seat in front of hundreds and hundreds of photographers that kept blinding her with multiple flashes of light. She really could care less about how she looked in the pictures, she just wanted to get over with this as soon as possible. Really, what was it with putting her in front of so many people and answering questions? And I don't know, write my answers on a sheet of paper. Wait, scratch that. I am so not writing that much. Fortunately, Tenzin and Naruto came with her in an attempt to keep her calm and suggest what questions she should answer and what not. She really appreciated the gesture. Otherwise, she would make a fool of herself in an unimaginable way. And so she started. Hello, I'm Korra. Your new avatar, she started to say. Well, that went perfect. Naruto facepalmed while Tenzin was rubbing his temples, feeling a headache coming. What was her reward, you might ask? Why, a barrage of questions, of course. Does this mean you're moving into Republic City? Were you trying to send a message to the triads yesterday? Will you be fighting crime or the anti-bending revolution or both? Will you be working with Chief Beifong and the police? Trying to compose herself from the sudden outburst of questions, Korra spoke up. Yes. I am definitely here to stay, but I don't exactly have a plan yet. See, I'm still in training, but look. All I know is Avatar Aang meant for this city to be the center of peace and balance in the world. And I believe we can make his dream a reality. I look forward to serving you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Republic City. Hearing Korra's statement, the crowd cheered loudly. Korra herself was relieved she somewhat pulled it off, not wanting to have her first official day as Republic City's avatar ruined. That was when Tenzin interrupted the second barrage of questions the journalists were preparing. Alright, those were all the questions the avatar can answer for today. Korra, Naruto, let's go. The moment they saw Naruto, they tried to ask him questions since he was also a public figure. As they rushed off stage, Korra couldn't help but ask Tenzin. "So, how did I do back there?" "Well enough," was his response. "With some luck, we should be able to avoid any other conferences that may present themselves soon. That way, we should be able to work on your airbending peacefully." "You did well, Korra, trust me. The first time I was in front of them, I was far worse," Naruto said. "Good. Because honestly, I don't feel like doing this kind of stuff ever again. However, you must realize that you will be expected to attend to these sorts of events. That includes important meetings and maybe social galas," Naruto reminded her. Korra sighed. "I know." Before she remembered what Naruto said. "Wait. What do you mean the first time? What happened in your first time in front of a crowd?" Korra asked curiously, but her curiosity turned to confusion when both Naruto and Tenzin's faces turned pale like snow. Nothing you need to worry about," Naruto stuttered out with Tenzin immediately agreeing with his nephew with a nod, but that had the opposite effect with Korra. "Why, please tell me," Korra pleaded. That went on forever. Air Temple 1 hour later. Back at the Air Temple, Naruto was finishing doing push-ups and was getting ready to do some jogging around the island. He was currently wearing his training uniform, which consisted of a white t-shirt and beige shorts that went from his hips to the end of his knees. Bandages that went from his ankles to his toes were wrapped around his feet. He really missed the feeling of actually being physically tired but at the same time wanting to work out more. Pushing his limits was one of the things he did best, from having an excellent and healthy body that could be just as dangerous as any weapon out there to expanding the typical mindset of airbending by showing his own. Talking about Naruto's airbending, the best way to describe it was by saying he was basically an airbending powerhouse. Instead of finding and following the path of least resistance, his airbending was based on overpowering the objective with the use of brute force. That didn't mean he would just jump in at the enemy's sight and smash him with air, as tempting as the idea might be. But if an attack was heading his way, he wouldn't always try to evade it. Instead, he would charge and make use of his strength and speed in combat. Finishing his stretches, Naruto spotted Korra walking over the docks along with Tenzin. Naruto smirked. Maybe the laps around the island could wait a little longer. "Hey Korra," Naruto greeted his childhood friend. "Hey Naruto. What are you doing here?" Korra greeted back. The change of clothes called her attention. "I was just in the middle of my daily workout. What about you?" "Still thinking about the conference, actually." "Why?" "As I said, you did good, how did you feel?" Naruto asked with interest. She took a seat on a bench nearby. "I was actually kinda nervous. I'd never seen so many people in one place before, it was crazy." Naruto nodded in understanding before taking a seat next to her. "So, do you work out a lot?" she asked in order to keep the conversation going. "Yeah, almost every day," Naruto responded. "Really?" Korra asked in disbelief. "Why?" "Well, living here can get pretty boring, especially with Uncle Tenzin mumbling about the correct way an airbender should act. After a while, you can get pretty bored if you're not practicing airbending or meditating. So exercising can be great to pass the time. You get some fresh air physical conditioning and you get to sleep like a baby at the end of the day," he said while laughing a little at the end. "I know, right? When I was in the South Pole, I used to practice my bending almost every day, so I know what it means to work your butt off in order to get good at something." "Yeah. Hey, I wanted to apologize for my little scene this morning," Naruto said in a more serious tone of voice. The sudden change took the avatar off guard. "Huh? What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about having breakfast with you in my underwear. You have to understand, we rarely have any guests coming over here and honestly, I'm not really awake until I have my breakfast. Seriously, I could have gone into the room naked and I still wouldn't have noticed," he apologized with some humor, making Korra giggle a bit. "It's fine, really. I didn't even remember it until you brought it up now," Korra said mockingly. "Really? Well, now I feel a little stupid," Naruto said back. The two of them looked at one another for a second before they started to laugh. When the laughter died down, Naruto's eyes lightened up in anticipation. "Hey, how about we have a spar? It has been a long time. See if you have what it takes to keep up with me," he beepily asked. "Oh, come on, I'm the avatar, Naruto. You should be the one wondering if you can keep up with me," she beepily retorted while closing her deep cerulean eyes. In all honesty, Korra wanted to spar with him just as much as Naruto wanted to. Back in the old days with the White Lotus, she was highly praised by Katara and her masters because of her skill. It prided her to know that she was good at fighting, being the brash and all-out girl of always. However, the White Lotus sparring partners quickly bored her. She would simply beat them in about 5 minutes, 10 at the most. It was boring. Naruto was always a challenge, sadly after leaving to train his airbending, he rarely visited and even when he did, almost half of the time would be spent catching up with each other, telling tales about themselves, mostly Naruto, since Korra had almost nothing new to tell, since she was stuck there with no new people around. But now, she had the opportunity to spar with Naruto. And for some reason, she had a feeling Naruto was going to be much more fun. "Don't worry, Korra. I promise I'll go easy on you. Does that sounds good, little avatar?" Naruto taunted her. And by the spirits did it work. "Hey, who are you calling little?" Korra snapped. "That would be you, Korra. Do you forget that I'm 18 and you're 17? Are you kidding me? You are just a year older than me." "I stand correct," Naruto said smugly. It was officially on. 1 hour later. Breathing heavily, sweat rolling down his face, "That has to be the best spar I've ever had in my life," Naruto said while breathing heavy. They had been sparring a little over an hour now and they both ended up too tired to keep going without blowing up the island. Tell me about it, I don't think I've ever had this much fun practicing before, Korra replied, a little bit more exhausted than Naruto. The spar consisted of going all out against each other without the use of brute force. Hand-to-hand combat was allowed. At first, when Naruto told Korra she should use all three of her elements against him, she believed he was being beepy like always. However, she quickly found out he wasn't messing with her when he easily dodged the water whip she used against him and airbended a fist to her gut, which in turn sent her flying a few meters back, making her lower back meet the ground face to face. It was only then that she started taking him seriously and attacked him with water, earth and fire. Using her three elements increased her chances of winning, but Naruto was simply too fast for her to catch him off guard. She didn't have much more luck in the hand-to-hand department. She expected to have the advantage here, but Naruto was just as good at punching and kicking as he was in his airbending. Both of them would exchange and block each other's blows for a couple of minutes before Naruto landed a decisive hit, strong enough to break her defenses and submitted her. The way he moved impressed Korra. It was like she was fighting a firebender, an airbender and an earthbender all the same. She recognized some moves of each style because of her previous avatar training in the South Pole, but he changed his fighting style so quickly she couldn't react in time. Of course, Naruto didn't really go all out, he knew he didn't use his more offensive airbending moves, but he would use them only against an enemy. How did you learn to fight like that? She asked while trying to regain her breath. I learned it by myself. Almost everything I know is self-taught, Naruto responded. His answer made the avatar gawk out of surprise. Are you for real? You learned all of that on your own? She asked, looking at him in awe. She was too shocked by his answer that she forgot how tired she actually was. Yeah. Like I said before, aside from my airbending lessons, I had a lot of free time, which I used in learning how to fight. It definitely comes in handy when I have to punch my way out of a situation without revealing my bender nature. Man, if that's what I'm going to learn from your uncle, then I can't wait to get started, Korra said excitedly. She just couldn't wait to airbend like Naruto. About that, Uncle Tenzin doesn't really approve of the way I airbend that much. He says that I'm misdirecting my airbending teachings. Not that I really care about that anyway. Traditional airbending was never my thing, Naruto replied calmly. Besides. Dottie trailed off. Korra noticed how his usually cool and confident attitude suddenly changed. This worried her a bit. Besides what? She asked, concerned. Naruto took a big breath and let out a sigh. Besides, never mind. What do you mean never mind, tell me? Korra asked, slightly hurt. She saw him as a childhood friend and maybe, something more, she didn't like to think that Naruto would not share something with her. Alright, but don't mention this to anyone else, Naruto said, but more like a warning. Korra nodded her head as Naruto went on and explained. Oh, was the only response from Korra, who wanted to hug her friend, but Naruto's sad face turned into a full-blown smile in a second. Don't worry, Korra. Right now, I have an amazing family I can call my own, a good place to live, a giant raven eagle I can ride for a pet, and you as my best friend. I don't think there are many people in this world as lucky as me, he finished as he gave Korra a small yet genuine smile full of determination and sincerity. Hearing those words, Korra was amazed by his determination and the way he looked at life. If she had any doubts before, they were absolutely gone by now. Naruto was certainly far more fascinating than she thought before. Besides, hearing him say that he felt lucky because she was his friend was more than enough for Korra to feel joyful, even if she tried to hide it. She just smiled at him back. Don't worry. I'm sure Kaya is proud of you. You're right. After all, what kind of parent who have the most awesome airbender for a son wouldn't be proud? MMMHH, I think the parents of the Avatar are prouder, Korra retorted. She was glad that Naruto was back at being himself, but she simply had to tease him after hearing him. Yuhe. The last time I checked, the Avatar was supposed to bend the 4 elements, not just 3 of them. Right now, you're as much as the Avatar as I am, he fired back. Oh yeah? Well shut up, was the only response she could think of, her face turning a little red. He got her good on that one. Shut up. Wow, nice comeback, Naruto said sarcastically. Said response earned him a punch in his left arm with an annoyed glare from Korra. Ouch. What was that for? That was for being such a smartass, she said, still looking sour for her verbal defeat. Anyone else would have stopped teasing her at that point. However, this is Naruto we're talking about. Is that right? He asked while glaring at her back with a serious look on his face, just before spreading his legs and pointed her with his right index finger making a dramatic pose. Well, I'm Naruto, and you gotta deal with it. At first, she glanced at him with a what the heck kind of look. But after a few seconds, she realized he was teasing her with her childhood catchphrase. No one teased her with that and got away with it. Absolutely no one. As her face turned redder than red itself, Korra started pursuing Naruto, who was running for his life. I told you not to remind me, Korra shouted, marching towards Naruto. Oh, come on, Korra. You know I always loved that moment, Naruto shouted before a game of cat and mouse started. Korra chased Naruto round the temple, soon joined by Milo, who ran along with Naruto for no reason whatsoever, soon joined by Jinora and Ikki. They supported Korra despite not knowing what was happening. Stop running and take your punishment like a man, Korra shouted. Somewhere. The door closed, the sound of metal hitting metal was heard as the mask looked at his guest, his face unreadable behind the mask, but one could see the grin. Are you sure about this? Don't worry, Amon, once I'm done. Everyone around the world will hate the benders. The masked man spoke before laughing. And in the final round the buzzer wasps won with a decisive knockout, Korra said as she read the newspaper. They were currently having the traditional tea break inside the temple. She then turned to see Tenzin with an excited look on her face. What do you say we go to the arena tonight, catch a few pro bending matches, maybe? Tenzin looked offended. That sport is a mockery of the noble tradition of bending. Naruto cut him off as he sat next to Korra. He was currently wearing the same white tank top, but instead of the boxers he used to exhibit, he wore grey sweatpants, all covered by a red airbender-like morning coat. The councilman took a minute to look at his nephew's new sleeping attire. While it still wasn't exactly how a proper airbender should look in the morning, it was an undeniable improvement over the boxers. Satisfied by both his nephew's clothes and answer, Tenzin nodded. Indeed. Naruto sighed as he shook his head. His uncle was so obvious at times. Oh come on Tenzin, I've been dreaming to see a pro bending match since I was a kid and now I'm just a ferry ride away, Korra pleaded as she pointed at the arena across the lake. Naruto stepped in. You know, if air is supposed to be the element of freedom, why don't you give us some freedom and let us watch a match? He asked in an attempt to convince him. In reality, he had sneaked from the island before to watch some of the matches that were being held, but he kept it a secret in order to avoid an unnecessary discussion with his uncle. You are not here to watch that drivel, you are here to dedicate yourself to the art of airbending. So for the time being, I want the Korra to remain on the island, Tenzin argued back, not buying Naruto's excuse of an argument. Even though it did make a little sense. Is that why you're keeping the White Lotus sentries around to watch my every move? Korra asked as she pointed to the White Lotus sentries that were present in the room. It reminded her of the South Pole compound, all of the guards constantly watching over her day and night. Yes. In order to learn airbending I believe you require a calm and quiet environment free from any distractions, her airbending master lectured her, hoping to end the argument before anything else could be said. That's exactly what she had back at the South Pole, uncle. How good did that work for her airbending? Naruto asked. Her time in the South Pole was spent teaching her fire, earth and waterbending, not airbending. If it wasn't for our current situation I could have taught her there. Before the argument could have continued, Korra sighed. Alright, you're the master, she said in a defeated tone of voice before staring at the side of Republic City. Naruto didn't miss the look on her face. She's gonna go there anyway, isn't she? Air Temple Training Ground. Naruto was currently spending time with his cousins in the training ground. Even though Ikki and Milo could prove to be quite the pieces of work, the two of them really were good-willed and occasionally made him laugh, so he would put up with them. Jinora was the calm and wise one out of the group, she being the only one able to actually satisfy some of the curiosity of Ikki, and that was no small feat however one saw it. Hey, Naruto, Jinora asked her cousin she was so fond of. Jinora had always considered Naruto part of the family, he could always lighten up the day. What's up Jin? Naruto said to Jinora using the nickname he had come up for her a few years ago. What do you think of Korra? What do I think of Korra? Well she's strong, funny, pretty, rebellious and kind of a tomboy. All in all, she's great. Why do you ask? Just curious, she shrugged. While looking at the ground, her hands behind her back, the blonde raised an eyebrow at her strange behavior, but before he could ask. Are you going to marry her? Asked a certain bun-haired girl. I don't know, Ikki. Do you think I should marry Korra? Naruto asked with a teasing his younger cousin following the game. Ikki's face instantly glowed in anticipation. Yeah. That way we would always have Korra around and you two would have babies and I'll get to be a flower girl at the wedding and then daddy would be a granddaddy and mommy would be a grandmama and grandmama Katara would be a grandgrandmama Katara and an aunt. Ikki kept going on about how great everyone's lives would be if Naruto and Korra were married until she was finally out of breath. Jinora started to get irritated with Ikki's talk while Naruto was laughing at her antics. Hey look, it's Korra. Milo shouted. Jinora, Ikki and Naruto turned around to see Tenzin walking towards the training ground along with Korra, who was dressed like an airbender for the occasion. Korra's gonna airbend. Korra's gonna airbend. Ikki squealed in delight while jumping up and down. As soon as Korra saw the airbending tool that was going to be used, she frowned. What is that contraption? She asked. The time-honored tool that teaches the most fundamental aspects of airbending, Tenzin explained. He then looked at his oldest daughter. Jinora, would you like to explain this exercise? She nodded. The goal is to weave your way through the gates and to make it to the other side without touching them, Jinora explained. Seems easy enough, Korra confidently declared. Hearing her naive answer, Naruto laughed. Looks like somebody forgot to say that you have to do it while the gates are spinning. Tenzin then took a step forward and released an air blast to the gates, which started to spin around at great speed. He then sent a leaf towards the gates, which weaved its way through the gates, not being touched once. The key is to be the leaf. Flow with the movements of the gates. Jinora will demonstrate. Jinora prepared for a minute before effortlessly making her way through the gates. As she was doing the exercise, Tenzin elaborated. Airbending is all about spiral movements. When you meet resistance you must be able to switch directions at a moment's notice, he said. Jinora finished the exercise and sent a gust of air towards the doors so Korra could start her training. Korra looked uncertain for half a second before growing a confident smirk. Let's do this. Korra shouted. But when she started running towards the gates, Naruto immediately knew things were not going to end well. Judging by her foot stance and speed, I'd say she's not trying to weave her way around, she's just trying to go there as fast as she can, hoping she won't get touched. Normally I'd laugh but it seems a little cruel right now. Hey uncle, I think I'm going to go now, Naruto said. Tenzin looked at him questionably. I thought you wanted to see Korra train. I do want to see her train. I do not want to see her get beaten into a pulp, Naruto said as he started walking to the temple. He didn't even walk 3 steps before both airbenders heard sounds of Korra being smashed constantly by the gates. By the way, I'll ask one of the White Lotus guards to bring a medical kit over here. Looking at Korra, Tenzin now understood his reasons. Thank you Naruto. Air temple at night. Airbend, Korra exclaimed as she attempted to throw an air blast using a picture of Chief Beifong from the newspaper. Seeing how her airbending attempts were fruitless, Korra grew frustrated. What's wrong with me? Airbend. She said as she tried another time. Needless to say, she got the same results. Screw it, she thought angrily while burning the picture of Lin with her firebending. Korra had been trying to airbend for the last half hour and not a single time she felt like she was getting close to actually doing something that resembled airbending. Why was it so hard when all the other elements came to her so easily? When she was 5 years old she was already capable of bending water, fire and earth. Yet for the past 12 years she had been training, her airbending had yet to manifest itself. She thought that at least she would learn something once she moved to the air temple, but everything was as useless as ever. Was it some kind of joke from Aang or one of the previous avatars? Maybe I'm just not cut out to be an airbender, Hanaga. Korra asked her polar bear dog who was keeping her company. Before she could continue to take her frustration on another innocent newspaper, Korra heard a voice nearby. Yo, she turned around to see Naruto holding a glass of lychee juice. Oh, hey Naruto. Didn't see you there, Korra greeted her friend. Naruto instantly knew she was frustrated because of her training results earlier. If you can say they were results, that is. Come on, it's just day 1. Don't let it get to you, Naruto said, trying to comfort her. I know, but it's just so frustrating. I thought that by moving here I would actually learn something, but so far the only thing I've achieved has been getting knocked down by those stupid doors. Do you know how much it took me to actually get around those doors? Naruto asked. What, 3 days? Korra asked back, still in a bad mood. Actually, it took me 3 weeks. So yeah, I do know how frustrating it can be, the young airbender said. Okay, but how does that helps me? Korra asked confused. Easy. If it took me, the greatest airbender to ever live, 3 weeks to finally get that exercise down, why would you feel bad if you didn't get it in your first day? Korra chuckled a bit. Naruto seemed to have the ability to improve her mood in just a few minutes of talking. Even if he was a little beepy sometimes, Korra was glad to have him around. It made her wonder if this was how it felt to be a normal teenager. Suddenly, she started to laugh out of nowhere. What's so funny? Naruto asked a little weirded out for the sudden change. Oh nothing, I was just trying to imagine how much of an awesome airbender you must have felt when you were getting your butt kicked by the boards, she teased. Naruto looked slightly offended. Whatever, he muttered, looking a little embarrassed. The memories of those doors beating the crap out of him were still fresh in his mind. Oh how much he wanted to punish the insolence of those darn doors back there. Korra was happy for finally getting back at Naruto for the other night. Teasing him had proved to be quite the stress relief method. It might have been a little selfish, but she just didn't care right now. A certain voice coming out of a radio drew their attention. A couple of White Lotus entries were hearing the pro-bending matches of the night at their guard posts. So Korra, what did you say we go hear the matches on the radio? Naruto asked even though he already knew the answer. Sure, but I don't think the sentries will like us sneaking around and listening to the radio with them, Korra said a little worried. She remembered all the times the White Lotus members scolded her for staying awake past her bedtime. Of course, she ignored them all of those times. Naruto smirked at her. Maybe, but they don't have to find out now, do they? No, I guess not, Korra replied with a mischievous smile of her own. In that case, what are we waiting for? Let's go, Naruto said, while the two of them made their way to the rooftops of the cabin where the sentries were housed. Once they reached the rooftop, they started to hear the sports commentator bringing the hype into the crowd. Few minutes later and Korra was completely hooked. Her excited face reminded Naruto of a little girl whose parents allowed her to play any game she wanted at the amusement park. He tried to make some small talk along the game, but was hushed rather quickly by Korra, who didn't want anything distracting her from the radio. And just when things were coming to an end, the radio was unplugged. Naruto, Korra, come down here please, the stern voice of Tenzin was heard. Both of them jumped off the roof and met the old airbender's gaze. Korra was the first to start. You shut it off at the best part. She whined. Tenzin ignored her complaint and started one of his infamous lectures. I thought I made myself clear. I don't want either of you listening to any of this distracting nonsense. But it was their radio. And technically you said we couldn't watch one, you never said anything about listening to one, Korra argued. Oh, she got you good there uncle, Naruto said, adding his 2 yuans to the conversation. Do you know what I meant? Anyways shouldn't you two be in bed by now? Tenzin weakly argued back before turning around and leaving the teens on their own. Morning in the air temple. Naruto, after repeatedly punching a wooden practice dummy in order to improve his speed and reflexes, decided it was time for a break and went to meditate in his favorite spot. It was a big rock that had enough space at the top for Naruto to comfortably sit and face the sunlight. He was wearing his training gear, a white tank top and beige large shorts with bandages in his feet and forearms. He took his shirt off because of the sweat that was going down his torso. Okay, let's see how meditation goes was Naruto's last thought before closing his eyes and going in that limbo mind state where airbenders went before going into the spiritual world. Apparently airbenders were very spiritual fellows and meditation was like a second nature to them. While he was no meditation master by any means, Naruto was able to relax, stay still and let the time pass by. As a matter of fact, a couple of times, Naruto had meditated for so long in the morning he didn't finish until dark. And as far as his airbending went, that was the second proudest memory Tenzin had from his nephew. Unknown to him, Korra was passing by near the stone. She just got out from yet another useless airbending lesson, this time on meditation. Stupid meditation, Korra muttered. Sitting still and wait for stuff to happen just wasn't Korra's style. It never was. As she kept going on with her airbending rant, she suddenly saw a man sitting on top of a rock with his legs crossed and his hands placed on his knees. At first Korra thought it was just another monk of the air temple, but the idea was soon discarded. Why? Reason number 1. He had long hair, unlike all the rest of the monks. Reason number 2. He was shirtless. Reason number 3. He had one heck of a body to show. Wait a minute. Is that Naruto? Korra thought in disbelief. He looked so calm and concentrated with his eyes closed, he didn't seem to have picked up her presence. With her curiosity getting the better of her, Korra carefully approached her friend. She realized his body slightly glowed while facing the sunlight. In other words, he was sweating. Now the avatar already had a general idea of how Naruto's body looked. She remembered when she hugged him goodbye a few nights ago before Tenzin said she could stay at the temple and learn airbending, feeling his hard body against her. Not to mention, when she finally saw him using that torn jacket of his, she did catch a glimpse of his bare arms, which showed to be lean and muscular in their own right. But seeing him shirtless was a completely different story. All questions aside, Naruto was certainly fit. Marked abs, lean chest and well-chiseled arms were among the things that stood out the most. The fact that his body was sweating all over didn't make him any less attractive, by the way. Unable to restrain herself, Korra approached Naruto as stealthy as she could to get a better look at him. Not because she had any lustful thoughts inside her head, don't be silly. She was merely interested in seeing the so-called eye candy of Republic City in all of his glory. Korra didn't realize it at the moment, but she had a side in front of her that was fantasied by quite a lot of girls, who would probably fume in jealousy if they ever found out that Korra was seeing the body of Councilman Tenzin's nephew. Little did Korra know, Naruto was already aware of her presence. Again, because he was still learning how to get into that completely detached from the outer world state of mind, he could still feel the people around him if they were close enough. And Korra was close enough alright. Resisting the urge to smile, he stayed still for a couple of seconds just to quickly open his eyes and look at Korra with a smirk. Can I help you with something, Korra? Nah Naruto. What the heck, you scared me. Korra practically shouted out of shock. The whole thing was so unexpected for her that she started stuttering. Well, I'm sorry, but you distracted me from my meditation. Can I ask why were you stalking me? I was not stalking you. Korra roared with a blush so red it was almost surreal. I was just admiring the view. Amazing, isn't it? Naruto teased with a wink. Feeling like she was close to blackout from embarrassment, Korra started walking away. Deciding that he had teased her enough, Naruto spoke up. Don't worry Korra, I'm just messing with you. So how did the meditation go? Humming herself, she responded. I think I'm even worse at meditating. Seriously, it's like the spirits don't want me to learn airbending at all. Realizing that this was no time for jokes, Naruto put his shirt back on and jumped down from the rock. Something you're not telling me? He asked concerned. Korra let out a sigh. It's just that what if I can't learn how to airbend? I'd be literally the worst avatar ever, she said sadly. Naruto approached the avatar with words of encouragement. He wasn't just good at fighting and showing off, he also had a way with words. Korra, don't get all sad just because you're not airbending right away. You will learn, and I'll be right there with you when you do, Naruto said reassuringly while making a pause to grab her hand warmly. You say you're not sure if you have what it takes to be the avatar. Well, I say you have all what it takes to be the best avatar the world has ever seen. That and more. Hearing the words that came out of his mouth, Korra was again stunned by Naruto. It shocked her how much faith he had in her. Ever since she found out she was the avatar, she felt like it was her destiny to become one whether she liked it or not. Personally, she thought it was awesome, but at the same time, she had to deal with all the pressure that was on her shoulders and the high standards placed on her by the White Lotus. They expected her to follow their teachings and do their training drills without hesitation, never asking her how she felt about it. She was the avatar, but she was also a human being, and human beings had the right to feel moments of doubt. Yet those moments of doubt were always ignored by her teachers, except for Katara and Naruto. And now, Naruto always listened to what she had to say and put all of his trust in her. It really touched her, and she couldn't help but feel reassured by him. You really think so? Korra asked hopefully. Not only do I think so, I know so, Naruto responded sincerely. Korra felt so much better by hearing his words, she just stood there holding his hand before grasping it firmly and smiled at him. Thank you, she whispered. Not a problem, Naruto reassured. Both teens stared at each other, both smiling softly. Time seemed to slow down for them. That was until Naruto snapped out of it. Actually, now that we are here, I want to make you a proposal, Korra. Sure, what is it? From what I have seen from your airbending lessons with my uncle, you are not exactly getting any results. But it's not your fault. If anything, the fault relays on Tenzin himself. He started teaching you right away like you were born an air nomad like the kids. I know this because I used to have the same problems you have. That's when I started training by myself to discover how to bend air my way. Naruto continued. Also, you have been kept in captivity almost all of your life. I don't know if you have heard this before, but air is supposed to be the element of freedom. Trying to learn about the element of freedom when you have never been truly free is as incorrect as it is stupid. That's what I said to Tenzin. He thinks that anything non-airbending related is a distraction, Korra said. The young airbender agreed. Yeah, you will have to forgive my uncle. He can get a little carried away when it comes to teaching airbending. However, it's time I get to the point, Naruto said making a pause. I wanted to ask you if you'd like me to teach you airbending. But isn't Tenzin supposed to be my teacher? Korra asked confused. Sure, Naruto was a master airbender, since he had his tattoos and all, but still she always thought an old airbender master would be better, not that she thought Naruto wasn't good enough, but now failing her lessons with Tenzin, she started wanting to have Naruto teaching her. Yes, but honestly I don't think he's teaching you the right way. Like I said before, a lot of my bending was self-taught to suit me better. I have a hunch that my style of airbending is gonna fit you a lot more than Tenzin's, Naruto explained. However, that doesn't mean you'll stop attending uncle's classes. He is your teacher, after all. Korra was a little hesitant. On one side, the idea of learning airbending with Naruto was certainly tempting. She already had seen his skills firsthand on their spar a couple of days ago, and she was not disappointed with what she saw. On the other hand, she wasn't so sure about failing twice in airbending. What if she didn't progress any with Naruto either? Sensing her hesitation, Naruto smirked. Did I tell you that we will include regular spars and that I'll actually teach you my martial arts? I just hope that they can compare themselves against Uncle Tenzin's meditation classes. I'm in. Korra shouted excitedly. Even if she couldn't learn airbending, there was no way she was going to let the opportunity to spar with Naruto and learn how to move the way he does slip away. Naruto grinned. Good to know. We start tomorrow, he said as he suddenly became serious. You must know that I take my training very serious and I expect you to do the same. Understood. The avatar nodded. Naruto's facial expression softened once more and started grinning again. Awesome. Now go get some rest. You'll need it for tomorrow. Sure thing. So, see you in the morning. Well duh, obviously, Naruto said in a mocking tone. Oh, right, Korra said sheepishly. They both waved themselves goodbye, looking forward for tomorrow to start their new master-apprentice relationship. Their temple at night. Korra was currently hiding in a room near the temple's entrance, peeping through the window. There were a couple of White Lotus sentries doing their usual guard job. When the guard closer to her started to walk away, she quickly jumped through the window and started running towards the cliff. Once she was close enough to jump, Korra heard a voice near her. Nice night for a swim, huh? Korra eeped and started looking for the one who caught her. She looked everywhere but no one showed up. Down here, Korra, the voice said. The Southern Water Tribe girl looked down just to see Naruto in his usual clothes lying on the grass. Instead of looking concerned or angry, he just looked relaxed, almost expecting her. Naruto. What are you doing here? Korra asked worried. Oh nothing, just staring at the stars in the sky while preventing you from doing something stupid, Naruto replied calmly as ever. What? I wasn't going to do something stupid. Yes, you were. You were going to a pro bending match without me, he finished offended. Korra was baffled. Wait, is that it? You're not gonna tell me to stay on the island? Korra, what did I said about the element of freedom? Naruto said in a lecture kind of voice. But it was useless to try to learn about it if I had never been truly free before, Korra responded. At first she was a little confused, but she quickly became excited. Does that mean that you are going to let me go? She asked with eyes full of hope. First thing, don't ask me for permission. You are 17 years old and you have the right to make some decisions of your own. Now, do you want to go? Yep. Would you be hurting anybody by going? Nope. Is it against the law to go to a pro bending match? Nope. Is it morally incorrect to go to see a pro bending match? Nope. Would you go on a date with me? Nope, I mean yes. I mean huh. Korra said, realizing it was a trick question. Naruto chuckled. Ayo, you look so cute when you're stuttering, he said teasingly. Before she could give him a well-deserved, in her opinion, smack in his arm, he interrupted her. Anyways, I think it's about time I introduce you to my friend. That stopped Korra dead on her tracks. Who are you talking about? There's no one else in on this island. Naruto just smirked. Really now? Oh spirits, this is gonna be so cool. Korra shouted while jumping in delight, excitement, joy, happiness, you name it, when she found out that the friend Naruto was talking about was none other than Sozu, the gigantic raven eagle. Not only that, Naruto said that if Sozu liked her, the raven eagle will let her ride him as long as Naruto was with her. Shhhhhhhh, keep it quiet. Sozu despises anything that is being loud near him, especially in his nap time, Naruto said to her while they were making their way to Sozu's bird nest. Said bird nest was basically a normal nest made out of the branches from the trees of the forest. The only thing is that this particular nest was on the ground and its diameter was 10 feet across. Sozu was sleeping soundly in his nest. The sounds of footsteps, however, awoke him up. He recognized his master's presence right away, but the other one was a mystery. Eyes wide open, he looked at Naruto before glaring animalistically at Korra. Hey boy, had a good sleep? Naruto asked his mascot. Sozu just kept glaring at the avatar, though he was getting calmer by seeing how his master was showing no signs of mistrust towards the girl. Alright Korra, come here slowly. Korra obeyed his orders as carefully as she could. This could be her only chance to make the giant raven eagle bird like her, and she didn't feel like screwing it up. Naruto then grabbed her hand and slowly placed it on Sozu's head. The giant bird seemed to hesitate for a moment, but then he walked back abruptly and went to sleep. Huh, it seems that he likes you, Naruto commented. He does. Doesn't look like it, Korra said in disbelief. Naruto laughed. Believe me, if he didn't like you he would be trying to bite your hand right now. He's not the friendliest animal around, but he's the coolest one ever. Isn't that right, buddy? Yes you are. Oh yes you are, he said while talking in a baby tone which made Korra giggle. Okay Sozu, we're going to the pro bending with Korra. You can sleep ladder. What do you say? Sozu responded with a small high-pitched squeak and a glare. Oh come on, don't make me look bad in front of Korra. If you let us ride you I promise I'll buy the food from the store you like so much. Please. Naruto pleaded. Sozu was silent for a moment, then he stood up while squeaking his animal version of fine, just hurry up you brat and let me go back to sleep. That's my boy. Naruto shouted while patting Sozu's back. Naruto, did you just talk with Sozu? Korra asked not believing the whole thing. Sure, she did the same with Naga, but it wasn't like she could understand her barks or anything. Naruto acted like he could actually hold a conversation with Sozu. Yeah. Ever since I founded him on the island years ago, we sorta learned how to talk with each other. And let me tell you, he can be quite a bit of a jerk at times. Sozu heard that last comment and went to bite his owner's hand. Ouch. What? It's true. Naruto said, glaring at Sozu, who merely squeaked, saying, serves you right, you little punk. What was that, you oversized chicken? Korra had never laughed so hard for so long before. After 10 minutes of arguing and calling names to each other back and forth, Naruto and Sozu stopped the fight for the time being and promised each other that they would continue tomorrow. Naruto then prepared his saddle. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I only have one saddle to ride, Sozu. And since he barely knows you, he won't let you sit in front. My advice for you would be to hold on tightly. Wait a minute, what do you mean by hold? Korra started to say before Sozu started to propel himself up into the air and flew at medium speed towards the arena. Korra's instincts were to immediately hold on to Naruto as hard as she could. When things calmed down, Naruto looked back at her and grinned. Hey Korra, if you keep having your eyes closed you're gonna miss the show. Following his advice, Korra opened her eyes. They were flying around so carelessly around like it was no big deal. Seeing Republic City from above was incredible for Korra. She was feeling a new sensation, like she could do anything. All of her worries, including airbending and meditation, were gone. It was intoxicating to say the least. Below her, the city looked like a sea of stars, beautiful. This is awesome, Naruto. I just feel so free. Naruto guessed. He had the same feeling when he was with Sozu in the air. Yeah, free, Korra finished with a smile. She was unaware she was still holding Naruto tightly, but she was too blown away from the experience to even realize. Naruto also noticed this and considered teasing her, but he decided not to. He would be the first to say he enjoyed to have Korra hugging him. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.